Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Hamza Idris. A bill for an act to document and protect domestic workers and their employers scaled through second reading at the Senate in Abuja. Sponsored by Senator Hussaini Babangida, APC Jigawa, the bill, which first read on the floor of the chamber in November last year, seeks to address increase in the incidence of assaults and abuse of domestic workers by their employers or hosts. The bill is coming at a time workers in both public and private sector are seeking better deals from their employers through improved wages and remuneration in the face of soaring cost of living in the country. And in another twist, lawmakers at the upper legislative chamber want urgent action from the executive arm of government to save Nigeria from going to the Somalian way due to rampaging hunger and starvation amidst growing food insecurity. Former Senate President Ahmad Lawal, who raised the concern, also claimed the nation's strategic reserves are empty, making the situation even more complicated and requires urgent action by the government to avert public hunger. The concern comes at a time the Tinubu administration is releasing trucks of fertilizers to governors and federal lawmakers for upward distribution to farmers with a view to boosting food production. And it is against this backdrop and other pressing issues in the polity, we'll be engaging with a senator representing Jigawa Northwest, Babangida Hussaini, who incidentally is the sponsor of the bill to protect domestic workers in Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming to our studio.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
But before the conversation, here are some tidbits. As Nigerians hit the streets to protest hunger, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, Wednesday disclosed that in 180 days, food prices will crash. Kyari stated this on his X, formerly Twitter handle, where he unveiled measures that will be implemented over the next 180 days. He said, and I quote him, "Our administration has unveiled a series of strategic measures aimed at addressing the high food prices currently affecting our nation. These measures will be implemented over the next 180 days, end of quote. Meanwhile, at the resumption of plenary on Tuesday, the Senate engaged in a prolonged conversation lamenting the attendant effects of the food crisis currently being experienced by their constituents. It was during this debate that it was revealed that the federal government has begun distribution of 60 trucks of fertilizers to state governors, 2 trucks to each senator, and 1 truck to each House of Representative member for distribution to their constituents. Here is an expert.
The debate started when a motion on the urgent need to address food insecurity and market exploitation of consumables in Nigeria was moved by Senator Karimi Steve Kogi West on the hunger that Nigerians continue to bear due to the exorbitant cost of food commodities occasioned by skyrocketing food inflation in Nigeria. Senator Karimi also revealed how the activities of unscrupulous food merchants further worsened the food crisis.
Concerned that the greater percentage of the increase in price of food items and consumables in the country is not only due to these factors, but to the sales of merchant traders and retailers to make supernormal profit, while they excuse the hike in prices on these factors, that is depreciation of naira, increase in prices of petroleum products, and insecurity in farming regions, thereby heaping the blame on the federal government.
Other contributors called for urgent measures to ease the hardship on their constituents.
As it is now, a bag of rice is selling at about 100,000. A bag of maize, the same thing. Even prices of tomatoes, onions, and other basic food is high. Distinguished colleagues, as representatives of the people, we need to do something.
The executive arm of government is saying, is considering reducing or removing taxes on imported foodstuff. Mr. President, here's the catch. This Senate must engage the executive immediately What are the issues? Which taxes are they talking about? We have really little or nothing in our food reserve across the country. And nobody should come and tell us they will distribute foodstuff from our silos. The silos are empty.
Nigerians cannot suffer from hunger while the government has the capacity to ameliorate the situation. By removing import duties on all the food items, it's a way to flood the market and flood the country with food, with cheap and affordable food.
Meanwhile, the plenary went into another round of arguments when Senator Adamu Alero of Kebbi Central called for the intervention of the Senate President regarding the distribution of 2 trucks of fertilizers allocated to them by the federal government for this year's planting season.
What is happening is that only governors are given the fertilizer. Senators are yet to get a single bag of fertilizer. And there is need.
It is going to the
Mr.
governor.
President, there is need for you to intervene, to call the Minister of Agriculture and tell him to immediately authorize the distribution of fertilizer to all the senatorial districts. This is the season we need the fertilizer. If it doesn't come now, it's as good as not having it at all.
The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, called the attention of the Chairman, Committee on Agriculture, to provide clarification.
We had hitches from the NSA's office. They stopped every truck of fertilizer from moving out because of the security implication. They had to certify clear before they will allow the trucks to move out. So, sir, I want us to exercise patience. By weekend, I'm sure everybody or most people will have received their supplies. Please.
You know, they like me, quoting me. They will say Akpabio again. This is from the Senate Committee Chairman on Agriculture.
Yes, and lastly, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Oruola, on Wednesday declared what he termed as unpalatable cocktail of misleading and conflicting judgments emanating from courts of coordinate jurisdictions in the country. He said the National Judicial Council has already activated the process that will ensure that errant judges are made to face the consequences of their despicable and odious conduct. Speaking shortly after he inaugurated 22 judges into the Court of Appeal bench, the CJN lamented that the avalanche of frivolous interlocutory orders emanating from the various courts have continued to make a mockery of the judicial system. I will now take a short break. When we return, our conversation commences. Don't go away. Yes, distinguished Senator Hussaini Babangida, once again, welcome to our studios.
Once again, thank you very much.
And I want to extend our condolences over the demise of Rep. Olaide Adewale from Ibadan. May he so rest in peace.
Amen.
And I think that was why plenary was suspended.
Yes.
Yes, all right. Accept our condolences.
Amen.
You have seen an array of tidbits, almost all around the National Assembly. So I don't even know where to start. Should we start with your bill at this time, or we should start with the major issues? But anyway, you can see today, as we speak, the president is about preparing to meet with the organized labor to discuss wages. Yes. But your bill is talking about domestic workers and their employers. Yes. Is there a nexus? Because out there, it's not really good, and then even in the home front.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it is important for us to lay the foundation and the reasons behind the presentation and hopefully enactment of this bill.
Okay.
I think my interest got captured in 1998 when one of the finest female pilots in Nigeria, Hadiza, was killed and murdered by her employees, and her body was dumped in the pit, the soakaway in her home, sealed up, and her domestic workers were at home until somebody, a retired police officer, her neighbor, raised an alarm. Eventually, investigation commenced. Her body was exhumed. It has decomposed, sadly, and then they were all charged to court. Over the course of the trial, the domestic workers and their sureties gave fake addresses and were billed and disappeared into thin air. This was widely reported in 1998. And sadly, up till today, justice has not been served. Her corpse, her family are still in agony and pain. The best practice globally is that every employer and employee will have a link, and the link is about the record they present to each other. In Nigeria, sadly and unfortunately, we don't have such a database. The biometrics information of our employees are not kept. I'm sure if you go back home, I'm sure you don't know your driver, or your cook, your steward. Perhaps you just, he was recommended or brought by somebody to you. Oftentimes, especially in the modern economy now, where almost everybody, the wife and the husband, are busy in their respective offices, home management is at the mercy of the domestic workers, the nannies, the caregivers, the cooks, the stewards, the drivers. All of these form a small economy. Now, here we are. We don't have their history. We don't have their record. We don't have anything about them. So oftentimes, and lately, reported cases have occurred that there is kind of connivance. There have been reported cases of connivance between criminal elements in the society with the domestic workers in the household to commit all manner of atrocities in the household. So the intendment of the bill is to sanitize this sector. That is one hand. On the other hand, the domestic workers are subjected to various abuses. They don't have any fixed salary, no fixed income, no condition of service, no sanitary and health facilities, no leave, no nothing. They are at the mercy of their employers. So the intendment of this bill is to sanitize and give opportunity for both sides so that at any point in time, the employee will be properly documented and captured, his biometrics taken, trained, and every opportunity given like any other worker in the formal sector. And then the employer, on the other hand, will have the peace of knowing that, okay, my employee, my staff is from so-so-so local government, he's from so-so-so community, his biometric is there, and the agency that placed him and gave the employment to you is also in the know of the history and the background of these domestic workers. Further again, we have a lot of, in the high-end portion of the society, foreign domestic workers that come in by way of cooks, by way of stewards, caregivers, nannies, nurses, and stuff like that. So most of them come into Nigeria, they are not properly documented, they are not captured, and then at the end of the day, when the sadly or unfortunately anything happens, they simply disappear into thin air, and you are left to rue your misfortune.
Why we found it curious, distinguished senator, at this time is here we are in Nigeria. Up till now, we are unable to document even the civil servants that, because if you now go to maybe office of the head of service of the federation to give you clear biometric of people in the employ of the federal government or at the state level or at the local government level, you will not have it. On the flip side, look at our soldiers now who serve the country for 35 years. Every day is about biometrics before they get the little pension. Don't you think your effort will be a futile endeavor?
No, not at all. I think the point I may probably want to raise here and to correct and the impression is that every employee of government who draws his salary from the office of the civil service of the federation is properly captured and documented under the APPIS platform. Every information from the day you join service to the day you are exiting is properly captured.
Then what is prompting this roll call of sorts? Because you are there working in the office, they will just tell you that, okay, we are going to do a certain roll call. You would agree with me that it's still a serious problem. Look at what happened with the university teachers. I don't think if they have fully resolved their own problem. These are people in the formal sector. We are still battling to get it right for them. And you are struggling for people who are actually domestic staff.
Well, really, you see, it will interest you to know that the interest this bill has generated is massive. And mainly because even if you don't do it for any reason, you must do it for your own security and the security of your family. You have cases of burglaries In fact, outright cases of theft of children under the care of nannies, they are properly reported. You see them in the papers every day, offline and online medias. So even for the interest of the security of your family, it serves you better to capture and document the biometrics of your staff. I'm not making an excuse for the formal sector. The formal sector is, as it were, is quite massive and big, and but I quite disagree with the notion that the staff of the area of service are not properly documented. I think that is wrong. Over the years, the IPPIS has provided the platform, Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System. That's the acronym. So the Personnel Information System deals with every information regarding your career, your entry into service, your career progression, and the day you exit. Up until the time I left service, this system has been active, and I believe it is still active.
I wish it were Friday, when we would normally open our telephone line for our viewers to actually call and ask questions. But unfortunately, today is Wednesday. That's why you will have seen barrage of calls. Yes. But then I can serve the devil's advocate. Yes. As we speak now, there are many university lecturers.
Yes.
That because of the technicalities around the IPPIS, they are unable to, they are still having their monies with the federal government.
I agree with you. You see, when you are dealing with the ICT infrastructure in Nigeria,
yes.
It is still growing. It's at infancy level. The capacity of the system to absorb all federal workers, I think, is where we are having issues. But by and large, I can assure you, the larger public service, the larger federal service, the workers are properly and fully documented. The university teachers, ASU, and the federal government issue is not something I would want to dwell on it, to deal with this, because it is a labor-employer relationship issue. But overall, I think it serves the interest of everybody for this information to be documented and to be properly captured. Why? Because at the end of the day, that is what you will probably require on the day you are exiting service. If you refuse to get documented and you refuse to have your biometrics taken until after you had exited service, that is why you are having problems in terms of preparation and payment of retirement benefits.
Okay, you also mentioned the issue of remuneration, yes, for the domestic staff. Here we are, even at the federal level. It's not really clear whether governors will be able to pay 60,000 or 61,000. You know, now, do you think whatever you finally succeed with your bill, it will make any sense to the employee?
Yes.
Yes, in terms of remuneration and job security.
Let me come in here.
All right.
Today, Philippines as a country, the GDP of Philippines, about 20% of it comes from remittances by their workers abroad. If you go to hospitals in the Middle East, in Europe, most of the staff engaged there, the nurses, the caregivers, are mostly Filipinos. What we are looking at is to sanitize the sector and formalize it in such a way that the record and the remittances will be properly articulated and formalized. And the intendment of the bill, beyond even documentation, beyond the biometrics, beyond even the issue of the welfare of the employees, is also to create a small economy, a new economy that will add value to the national GDP. Now, look at it this way. If you look at the structure of the Nigerian economy, more than 70% is in the informal sector. Every household you go to in Abuja, I can assure you will find one form of domestic worker or the other. If you don't have a cook, you'll probably see a nanny. If you don't have a nanny, you'll probably see a driver. If you don't see a driver, you'll see a megad. These are all in the informal sector. Now, aggregate the number, you will see the massive opportunity that is there in that sector. And if you sanitize the process, that is even the domestic workers. Now, if you look at the new economy that is coming up in the area of taking foreign Nigerians to work in foreign countries, in Dubai, in Qatar, in other Middle Eastern and Far Eastern countries, it is also an opportunity for us to have record of everybody who is moving out and taking employment. It helps the system. And the remittances and the money they make comes in through the formal system.
Then where do you place issue of exploitation, especially in the north? You are from Jigawa.
Yes.
If you go to Kano now, you see hundreds or if not thousands of young girls of school age being exploited. Here in Abuja, if you are to carry out maybe a survey, you will see that young women.
The penalties in the bill is that you cannot employ a domestic worker at less than 18 years of age.
Okay.
If you do, you are liable to be sanctioned, to pay a fine of 100,000 or even go to jail for that. No domestic worker should be employed at less than 18 years of age. That's part of the proposal in the bill.
Then what about those who are in the civil service or in public service or politicians who government make provision for them to actually employ people as domestic staff so as to create jobs, because it's part of job creation.
Yes.
But I can assure you, maybe among your colleagues, maybe you could have been an exception. Many senators, they only take the money and pocket it. Yes, I'm trying to be realistic. Yes, because people are accusing senators of all sorts of things, that even newspaper now, for you to buy the newspaper to support media houses, you take the money, you pocket. How sure are we that this thing will actually...
You see, this came about because of the consolidation of the remuneration of public workers. Within the consolidated salary, you find all of these elements that are captured and consolidated. But I can assure you, and I can tell you with all sincerity, that nobody today in Nigeria, a working family, will definitely have 1 or 2 domestic workers under their employment. That is always because of the structure of the modern economy. The wife goes to office, the husband goes to office. So who runs the home? Of course, it is the domestic workers. Especially with the escalating cases of insecurity in Nigeria, even if for nothing, you will surely have somebody who will be looking after your gate man, your megad, or whatever you want to call him. So the fact still remains, we need these people, and they are there and they are working. But because of the absence of a regulatory framework that will offer them protection from abuses, protection from exploitation, protection from all manner of societal maltreatment, that is one aspect of the bill. The other aspect is also the employer himself. Today, the reported cases we see in the papers are only a tip of the iceberg. If you go back into the communities and discover even the cases of kidnapping, no kidnapping case can happen without an insider. And normally that insider is somebody who lives with you.
All right, now I don't know whether we have anything to add, because there are quite a number of issues. Is there anything you wanted to say about this?
The only thing I will probably want to say is a journey of 1,000 miles starts from the first step.
And this is the inspiration.
This is the inspiration
behind now, the National Assembly is in the storm. If you look at the anger in the country, why are you not giving the desired traction? I mean, to help people come out of the serious poverty that is, affecting them.
Perhaps I think I will start by saying that the problem we have generally out there is people tend to misunderstand the responsibility of the National Assembly. The National Assembly is an arm of government dealing with lawmaking. The National Assembly has nothing to do with the executive functions bestowed in the executive arm of government. And this is the mix-up we're having. Where you find a faulty transformer, a faulty pump, everything is heaped on the National Assembly. I'm not making an excuse for them, but that's the reality of the democracy that we're practicing in Nigeria. We should hold the local government, the councillor, the local government chairman, the governor, and Mr. President responsible for executive functions of government.
But you have powers to actually remove any president who does not show any semblance of direction.
That may be true, but the fact is what we have and the leadership we have in place is about engagement. And we are beginning to see, and even from the snippets of what you just shown, we are beginning to draw the attention of the executive, and we do that all the time. The style of the 10th Assembly is about constructive engagement. We engage the executive every day. You would have seen clips of my engagement with the CBN, the economy management team. A lot of the senators have come out to condemn some of the government policies and to bring about newer ideas and perhaps even better ideas that will help the executive in doing their job better. So I think it's something that one should be appreciative of. And Nigerians must know that the National Assembly is principally a lawmaking body. We have no executive functions whatsoever. And this is where we are mixing issues and blaming the failings of one arm of government on the other, and that is not right.
There was this statement that came out, especially from the Senate, you know, a kind of endorsement of what President Tinubu is doing. Don't you think that is a clear contradiction from what is happening? Is somebody speaking on your behalf without your
the point
acceptance?
Is
yes.
the point is I want to speak as a Nigerian. I want to speak as a responsible legislature who is fully involved in the preparations and the deliberations of the National Assembly. The policies in place are quite desirable at this point in time. I give you an example. The issue of the foreign exchange, the rate of the naira vis-a-vis the dollar and other basket of foreign currencies.
Nearly 1,006 now.
That is one. Secondly, the issue of the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. You and I know that the subsidy benefits only a few members of the society, and it eats up and takes a large chunk of the national income. So removing them and then allowing the naira to float and find its own level is desirable. However, the only thing perhaps that was not in place, the safeguards. We need to have safety nets that would have taken care of some of the policy outcomes that came about from the withdrawal of the subsidy and other options. For us at the National Assembly, and I still insist, if we had channeled the savings into productive sectors of the economy that will ramp up the productivity of the economy, surely the pain and the difficulties that we're encountering today would not have been in place.
Now, who is at fault now, if you look at it from May 29, 2023 to date? Billions or trillions of naira have been saved in court. But I don't know how much you bought a liter of fuel now. And we are still saying that subsidy is being paid. Now people have not yet, you know,
those are the
feel the impact.
That was the point I'm making.
Yes.
Before introducing and withdrawing the subsidy, some fiscal and monetary safeguards should have been in place ab initio from the beginning. And to be fair to the government of the day, it is not a problem that even started with this administration. Even the former administration was grappling with the issue of subsidy payment, the issue of the macro and micro dislocations in the economy. Beyond that, over the years, there are areas of the economy we should have made sure over the years, I'm talking about 30, 40 years, since the days of SAP, we should have ensured, even at the point of liberalization and the commercialization policies of the SAP regime in 1986, some of us then still insisted that there would have been, some safeguards that will provide safety nets for Nigerians to protect them from the vagaries of those policy imperatives. But having said all of that, I think it is high time for us to accept what is right and to accept what is the truth. I am not holding brief for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but I think it is about time that we take the policy imperatives that are in place now.
But are you aware that many Nigerians now have turned against the statement you made earlier, that only a fraction of the citizens are benefiting from subsidy, because now people have lost their little capital, people can't even go to work, people are hungry, so they are even saying, bring back our subsidy, bring back our Buhari era.
You see, the payment subsidy in itself,
yes,
properly channeled and properly articulated, is a good thing. I give you an example. In the US, oftentimes the US government gives subsidies to their farmers to augment whatever losses they may have incurred in their farms. It's good enough. But in the Nigerian situation, you and I know that the bill of lading on ships, the round tripping, the so many infractions in the sector are such that they are even destroying the national economy. People are making money that they don't even earn. And this is why removing the subsidy for now is desirable. But like I said, I quite agree we should have had some policy, monetary and fiscal policies in place. For instance, part of what we should have done would have been to ramp up and speed up the construction of the railway system that was started by the Buhari administration. Put them in place, because those are vital for movement of goods and services, heavy goods and services. One. Secondly, again, is to invest in the agricultural value chain. I find it quite unfortunate blaming the issue of the Anko Borrowers program and some of the beautiful policies taken by the former administration. I quite agree there are abuses here and there and there are lapses here and there, but what you do is to correct them, repackage the same policy and move on. Instead of throwing them out. That was my argument on the floor during the screening of the CBN governor. And I still insist that until the day we invest in the agricultural value chain. I take you to the issue of the cost of tomatoes, which was...
Yes, Senator Ndume mentioned it.
Now, if we had invested money in technology, if we had invested money in storage facilities, if we had invested money in the value chain, it has always been a perennial problem. Every year, everybody knows that.
So if people like you are actually lamenting, saying, if we didn't do ABCD, now what a poor man like me or my uncle in the village, what does he have any option? Because you have the strongest power of the three arms.
And that is exactly what we're doing. And that's why we're talking to the executive every day. The point I'm making in this is that we are pushing and we are bringing about new ideas. We are bringing about and keeping tab on what the executive is doing. Gone are the days when policies are just pushed out and then somebody just goes to sleep and leave it. And no, not at all. What we are doing now is to checkmate all of those excesses and make sure that value for money in projects is derived, to make sure that if there are policy imperatives that have been taken, we should be able to interrogate them and believe and look at the benefit. We have gone beyond monitoring of projects. We're evaluating them. We are more interested in the impact on the society, the impact on the household, the impact on the community. Those are the things that capture our attention in the 10th Assembly. More so with the kind of good working relationship between the executive and the National Assembly, I think.
But people believe that this good working relationship is actually the oil that is manifesting clearly.
I've had rubber stamp, I've had Xerox and all of that.
Are you not distinguished?
We're not. If we are, or if we were, we couldn't have been raising the kind of motion that was raised yesterday. The point is, in legislative businesses, there are committee works. At the committee level, agencies are interrogated, agencies are kept in check, policies and programs are evaluated, and where we find the desirability of either continue the policy, changing the act, amending the act, bringing in new legislation, we do that.
We are seeing a certain trend, especially if, in the Senate, for instance, if it is Akpabio that is presiding, you will see a wonderful debate. Maybe the opposition have their way, including some of you, members of the APC. But at the end of the day, it did not align with what he was told, allegedly, from the villa. Even if it is the nays that have it, he will say the ayes have it. Have you noticed that?
I don't think I have ever noticed such kind of scenario that you are painting. But
maybe because you are in the chambers. Those of us from outside, we know we see the voice.
But the point I'm trying to make is this: there is no harm in engaging the executive arm of government in fashioning out and bringing about legislations that will impact and help Nigerians. Let me just give you a small example. The issue of the fertilizer you are talking about that was tabled yesterday.
Which I actually wanted to ask a deep question.
Yes, you are free to ask me that question.
Yes, what I'm saying is now, look at, earlier you said your business is that of making laws. Now here we are seeing the legislators asking, where is my truck of fertilizer? Don't you think it's creating room for suspicion?
We represent Nigeria. All the 109 members of the National Assembly and the 360 members of the House of Reps represent Nigerians. And the best special purpose vehicle to reach out to the common man is through the legislatures. We're inundated every day with requests for fertilizer, requests for farm inputs. And I assure you, the best way you can reach out to the average Nigerian on the street and in communities is through the National Assembly.
And don't you think some of these expenditures, they are the ones at the root cause of the problem we are having? Look at it, issue of palliative, because it may end up being a palliative which will only benefit party loyalists, while the typical farmer.
I'm against palliative tokenization and the issue of palliatives. I'm against it totally. My take and my position in this situation is for us to bear the pain and bring about durable, sustainable, and beneficial policies that will help Nigeria. I'm against the idea of dumping money, 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira on the heads of people to say you are taking them out of poverty, you are alleviating poverty, you are palliative. I'm against all of that. For me, that money is better channeled into productive sectors of the economy. And they are there. Go to Aba. If you go to Aba, you will begin to see the small micro enterprises that are working. Why don't you support them? Why don't you fund such micro and small and medium enterprises? If you go up north here in Kanu, go to Kanu. We had over 3,500 micro and small and medium enterprises operating in Kanu. Why don't you support them by, for instance, saying, okay, this month you don't pay energy bill. Government will write it off for you. That will enhance the productivity.
Someone will feel as if this should be a bill from you. You know, this one-off support. Okay, for the whole month you will not pay for energy. You are a big time farmer, distinguished senator, and also you produce livestock. When I go through your brief, do you go to your farm
every 2 weeks? Every 2 weeks.
Is it in Jigawa or here in Abuja?
I have a farm. No, in Jigawa, in my hometown, Kazori, and Hadija.
A few days ago, we heard of serious clash between farmers and herders. I was in Katsina for the Northwest Security Summit. Yes. The outcry there, if you go to Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, Katsina, you know, of course, let me stop here.
Okay, I think I get the drift. Yes. You see, the point is this. We tend to look at issues superficially. Okay. Now, the deeper meaning of the issue, the clashes between farmers and herders, I had served on a committee in 1993, an interstate committee dealing with Fulani and farmers.
You were in the civil service then?
I was in the civil service then, in Jigawa State actually. It was an interstate committee to deal with the issue of farmer-herder clashes. One, it is traditional, it has always been there. Historical, more than 1,000 years back. In fact, it's in the holy books. If you go to the Quran, there is a verse dealing with the issue of the clashes between farmers and herders. It has been there. One. Secondly, why it is assuming the dimension it is taking now is because of many factors. The first factor, of course, is about absence of grazing reserves that have been taken up by urbanization, road construction, dam construction, and other issues of development that have eaten up into the grazing reserves. Secondly, and most importantly again, is the environmental factors. Up north here, because of the degrading soil condition in the north and the Sahara, the approaching Sahara that has eaten far deep into the far north, land that ordinarily is fertile for grazing is taken up by the Sahara Desert, is not productive anymore. So the few fertile areas and the few lands are being competed between the farmers and the herders. Thirdly, and most importantly, is absence of regulation, a regulatory framework, and absence of strict application of our rules and regulations. Most times, and I want to tell you, the farmers normally come in from Mali, Niger, Chad, to rear their cattle in Nigeria. They call it, at that time, I remember it was called double day. Communities come together and bring their cattle and then assign young men and women to bring them into Nigeria to farm. They don't have understanding of our customs, they don't have understanding of rules and regulations, and there is nobody to really look after them. And that brings me to the role of traditional institution in this situation. The best mechanism to address Fulani farmer-herder clashes is through traditional institutions.
I wish I have time to dwell on that, but I want us to go back to the statements by two distinguished senators there. Yeah. Former Senate President Ahmed Lawal said the reserves are there, the food reserves are empty.
Yes.
For long, in fact, since the coming of this administration, we have had declarations that we are going to remove so tons of grains and distribute. Here we are, a member, key member, principal member of the APC, saying the reserves are empty. Are you with him in this?
I have no reason to doubt his statement. Having regard to the exalted office he has occupied as a former Senate President and also a member of the National Assembly, and he's not somebody who talks frivolously. He's somebody who speaks on point of facts. I have no reason to doubt him.
Now, he also said you people have to be very careful so that we will not go the way of Kenya. Are you scared that Nigeria is gravitating towards?
I think that is an unfortunate statement to make. And I think it shouldn't come from an exalted member of the National
Maybe it's the anger. He's trying to actually show the anger of his people. He's from Gashua?
No. He's my neighbor.
He's your neighbor,
he's
of
my
course.
neighbor, yes. The fact still remains, we are not going to go the way of any country. Nigeria will remain Nigeria, and we are committed to salvaging whatever difficulties we are finding our situation in. I have confidence in the capacity and the ability of the present administration under the leadership of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But you had Senator Indume saying that even the doors of the president have been shut for some of you.
Excuse me, I'm not part of those who are going to the door to knock, so I'm not interested in that part of the statement. Okay. But the point I want to make in this regard is that Nigeria and the commitment and determination of the present administration under Bola Ahmed Tinubu to bring about positive change and to rechannel our energy towards development is unquestionable. However, I quite agree that there are some policy options that shouldn't be taken until such, like I earlier on mentioned, some safety nets are in place. I totally, like I earlier on said, I totally disagree with the quantum of money that is being sunk into the non-productive sectors of the economy. I still feel we can go back and amend some of those policy tractions we have taken. And we are talking with the CBN and with the economic management team who are drawing their attentions to this. And I'm happy reminding us of the declaration by the CBN governor that they are taking the CBN away from its from an interventionist agency, as he said, to a regulatory agency. Fair enough, but we kicked against it. And today we are beginning to see the results of some of those interventions. In the past, in the recent past, 2-3 years back, federal government has no business with fertilizer because of the presidential fertilizer initiative that encouraged the establishment of fertilizer blending plants and fertilizer domestication of the fertilizer policy. But the fact still remains, and the fact is, government has to intervene in critical sectors of the economy, and I'm beginning to see that happen.
I'm sure back home, your people are watching us. Do you think they will be in tune with some of it? It's like you are protecting Tinubu.
I'm not.
Believing that?
I'm not.
Okay. Now, do you believe that their sense of direction is questionable? For instance, 2 days ago, we had this story that they are going to remove taxes for people to import food and all that. Before we know, they removed the they removed all the tweets and all that. Initially, they said the Minister of Agriculture will even address the press. Up to now, there was no categorical statement on that. Only for us today to see the minister on his Twitter handle saying in the next 180 days, prices of food will crash. Do you think they have a sense of direction?
See, I have said this before, and I still insist on my earlier position.
Yes.
I'm not an advocate of importing food into Nigeria.
Okay.
I disagree totally. I believe we have the capacity, we have the land, we have every resource that will make Nigeria a food independent of food import.
Maybe because you are a farmer.
Yes, I can speak also authoritatively as a farmer. Also, but let me also say that there are some things that are not in place. First of all, Nigeria as a nation is quite large, quite huge. 924,000 square kilometers of borders. Benin Republic, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, and our shoreline. If you go to my place, my constituency, every Friday, between Thursday and Friday, you can count more than 250 trucks loading food items out of Nigeria. No country.
To where?
To Niger, and even to Central African Republic, to Chad, to Mali, name it. No country can survive that kind of onslaught. And I think that is where we're missing the point. If we can regulate and control our borders and make sure that even if we have to supply our neighbors, I have no problem with supplying food to our neighbors, but it must be on a government-to-government basis that will earn government foreign exchange, that will enhance closer monitoring of what comes in and what goes out. That is the missing link.
So I say it is lack of regulation that is biting harder on us now, aggravating the cost of food.
It is not about lack of food. Go to the Wano market in Kano. You can probably find that market can feed Nigeria for a year. Go to the Wano market. There are pockets of those markets. Go to Megateri market in my constituency. See the quantum of food that is being produced. Go to Gujungu market in Jigawa state. The point is, as long as our naira is weak, as long as our borders are not protected, we'll continue to have this shortage.
Before we were crying that we locked the borders. That was why things are very expensive. Now government say, okay, the borders are open, and that we are still going round, merry-go-round.
No country in the world open and allow its borders the way Nigeria does.
What is your take on the Ministry of Livestock, the proposed Ministry of Livestock?
Oh, a beautiful initiative. Beautiful initiative.
But I can see some kickback from the south already, saying that it is going to just favor the Fulani.
It is always a common reaction, and over time, the benefit and the value. The livestock subsector of the agricultural sector is huge, is massive. Nigeria can be exporting processed meat to even the Middle East. I have had orders for the supply of goats, 1,000 goats every month to Saudi Arabia. But because the capacity and the resources are simply not there, we don't have the policies framework, we don't have the funding structure, we don't have any regulatory system in place that will help in bringing about the benefits of the livestock sector. That's why we're having this kind of problem. But it's a good initiative.
Even though we're around, but I have two very important questions. I hope you answer them in 30 seconds or thereabouts. Yes, the general belief, especially in the north, is that the region has been shortchanged in the scheme of things. It's just about killings and all that. Do you share this? And who should we blame at this point?
I think what we are missing is the inflow of unregulated inflow of small arms into the north from the northern part of our borders. Libya, after Libya failed, all manner of arms were brought into Nigeria. That's one. Secondly, our neighbors from Mali, most of the criminalities around the northwest are occasioned by the influx of those unregulated.
So that's more to control.
Yes.
The next 30 minutes or 1 minute or less, please. What do you think northern leaders like you, the governors, House of Reps members, what do you think you must do in order to salvage the people that are
address our mind to youth unemployment, address our mind to the issue of security, address our mind to the issue of the failing infrastructure in the north. Once we focus on these three key areas, most particularly the issue of youth unemployment, which is exacerbated by the issue of drugs. I have raised a motion on the floor on the issue of the drug and substance abuse. Our children are at home, graduates with qualification, papers in their hands, but no job to give them. So if we can ramp up our investment in the private sector and also open up opportunities of employment both in the public and private sector, I think it will help the North greatly.
All right, thank you very much, Distinguished Senator Hussaini Babangida, APC Jigawa, for coming to the program and for going beyond your bill to discuss national issues.
I appreciate the opportunity and I thank you so very much.
And we hope to have you some other time.
Anytime.
And viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and also our special package on Friday, during which we open the telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Once again, I'm Hamza Idris. Bye-bye for now.